we are ready to lash. I'm going to lash this side of the mannequin head. However, first I want to go through my setup. So you need to make sure that you have everything ready to go. It's always good to stay very organized. So here is what I usually keep in my trolley, and I'll go through a whole demonstration of how to set your trolley up or whatever it is that you're using for lashing. So in here I have my micro swabs, I have my spoolies, my glue ring, I have multiple lash removers, I have a cream, and I have two gel ones. I have my primers, I have my adhesives, and then I have my eye pads. I do have acetone. Acetone is what you use to clean the glue off your tweezers if you find that they start to stick. I always have my mini fan and my nano mister. 3 types of tweezers. I have my straight, I have 2 curved. Sometimes I isolate with 2 curved, or sometimes I isolate with a curved, or I'll isolate with a straight. So in my trolley, I do keep my lash bath and all that stuff in there because everything needs to be right at hand. I also have my tape, which is very important as well. So other than that, I would have my trays of lashes, which is right here. So then I have a classic mixed tray of lashes as well. So now when people start doing lashes, there's many different ways that they apply or that they remove the lash strip, and they will either put it on the back of their hand. Some people will use a silicone pad. It's really sticky, so it'll stick to their forehead, and then you put the strips of lashes on that. Other people will use a tile. So, you know, you'll put your strips on the tile, and then you can have a little sticker. And what the sticker does, I don't know if I have any right here. No. What the sticker does is you can put your dots of glue on the sticker, or you can use a jade stone for your adhesives, or you can use a glue ring. I personally like using a glue ring, and I actually stick the strip lash around my finger, and then I have my glue ring above it, and I find that is easier for myself to lash, especially doing volume. So we're just gonna start out with the classic. So I'm actually going to, for once, put it on the silicone pad. I've never used this before, so kind of anxious to try it. So here we'll go with 12s, and then we'll do an 11, and then we'll go into a 10, and then we'll have our 9s. So whatever order you want to go, you can do 12s to 9, or, you know, either way, whatever suits your need. So now we have our adhesives. So this is the Bougie Elite. This is my favorite. I can control the speed of how this dries with actually adjusting the humidity in the air. So I'm a fast lasher, so I like to have a higher humidity because it actually dries and attaches a lot quicker. So with adhesives, it's super important that you shake this for 60 seconds. If you don't shake it for 60 seconds, you're not getting a good mix up with it, and you really need to have that for a good retention. So another thing too is your first dot of glue always goes into the garbage, or you can put it on one of your leftover lash pads. Just put a drop on there. And then as soon as you're done putting a drop on it, you can take your nano mister, or you can take what you use to fill up your nano mister and put a drop of water over top of it. And what that does is it encases it, and it doesn't let off any more fumes. Now another thing, and I don't have any left because of the pandemic, is your masks. You really want to get into the habit of wearing a facial mask. It's you can even offer them to your clients. The thing with the masks is you have cyanoculates in the adhesives. It's a very fumy, even if you don't smell it very strong, it still gets into your airway. So if you notice that you're starting to get sore throat, flu-like symptoms, you just really need to make sure that you protect yourself, offer your client a mask, and always mask. Always use a mask. All right, so now I'm just gonna zoom in here, and we are going to, so I removed the silicone pad off of the client because I wanted to show you hand placement before we actually get into lashing, because this is extremely important. So when you have your tweezers in your hand, you're going to be ambidextrous. So it's really important that you have proper balance on your client's face without like invading them. So it's always good to place this part of your hand on their forehead, because that's going to give you balance. You can always brace on their upper, like the brow area, because when you're going in, you need to have balance when you're isolating, right? So when you go in, you need to be able to balance. So for me, I isolate with my left hand. So with the left hand, I always brace my pinky, my ring, and then go in this way to isolate. And then you would just isolate. So with this hand, you would go in and you would pick off your lash. Now I'm backwards here. I've got my wrong tweezers. Here we go. Okay, so what you would do is you can even use this hand to help isolate, because you can pull these back. With this tweezer, you can go in and help pull it back. Another thing, some people will get in and use their fingers here to isolate, depending, you know, what you need. You can use this hand, do the same thing. I'm trying to get in camera view here, so. But for the most part, I do tend to do this quite a bit, which is help with my other tweezer. Then what I do is I go in and I grab the lash that I'm gonna use, dip it in the glue, and then fix it onto the lash. So I'm going to show you that now. So here we have our glue. Let me see if I'm gonna zoom in here. So now for isolation, you have to make sure that you are completely isolated. Now, it's really hard to do this with a training head. It's so much easier to do it with an actual human, because these lashes that are training lashes are not, they're almost like a harder plastic, so they don't really attach that easily. And they definitely like to slip around. As you can see, they don't stay attached very well to the mannequin head. So when you isolate, you need to make sure that you get in there, and it has to be one lash between your tweezers, not two. Sometimes you get those little tiny baby ones, but you really got to make sure that you get that isolated nicely. If you don't, what can happen is you can glue two lashes together. And if you do glue two lashes together, you have to make sure that you remove them, because if you don't, see, these heads are horrible. 'Cause if you don't, then what's gonna happen is you are going to, you're gonna glue two lashes together, or they're just gonna stick together. What happens is when your lashes grow, it's gonna pull and tug on the other lash that it's affixed to. And if that happens, then you can have an irritated follicle, you'll have burning, it's super uncomfortable for your client. So if you do end up sticking two together, you must, and I mean must, have it removed. So, see if I can get this inner one here. Your inner lashes are always going to be your most challenging because it's just a very tiny area. Now what I do is I like to sort of bend them over into the direction that I want them to flow. So your inner corners, you sort of want them to go pointing towards the nose and then straighten out, and then your outer corners, you sort of want them to flow off to the left or the right, depending on what side you're on. So here we have some 9s. These are your inner corners. I'm not going to do an entire set here. I'm just going to do a couple here to show you. And then I'm gonna move into doing the removal. Now, my isolation is not very good there, but again, these training heads are not the best. All right, another thing you want to make sure, always lift the lashes up because you want to make sure that they're not sticking to that eye pad. So here I'll grab an 11, make sure I only have one. I'm just gonna do just some random sizes all the way through here. So I need a good shot at isolation for you. And when you're attaching your lashes, you really must make sure that they are a 0.5 millimeter to 1 millimeter away from your lash line. If they're any closer, your client can get irritation, they can have a bad reaction, their eyes can swell, they can have burning, itching. It's scary if your client starts to not be able to see and they have swelling. So it's always important to make sure that you are not getting it too close to the lash line. So now if you have too much glue, I'll show you this. So when you're dipping your glue, you always must go in the middle and pull up. If you go too slow, you'll end up getting glue balls. And when you get glue balls, you have to make sure that you dab that excess off. But if you dip properly and just dip in the middle and dip quick, you don't tend to get those. So always dip directly in the middle and pull upward. So again, we get in here, we isolate, and then we attach. See? It's pretty easy. I'm not used to picking my lashes up from downward. I usually have them wrapped around my fingers, so this is different for me. So the good thing with this glue too is as soon as you get to a lash, it kind of suctions to it. It's a really nice adhesive to work with. And again, with the proper humidity, it can dry nice. So that is how you lash. So from here, I will explain how to nano mist, and I will explain how to do a lash removal. That will be next.